Lesson 8, Part 1, Aorist active and middle participles. So first, let's look at the form of an aorist active participle and an aorist middle participle. Aorist participles are very similar to present participles in form. The main difference is that the aorist active participle is formed on the third stem instead of the first stem, and same for the aorist middle. Also, for first aorist verbs, there's no theme vowel since they already end with an alpha. You'll notice that first aorists never get theme vowels. It doesn't matter if we're looking at the indicative, if we're looking at the infinitive, the participle, the subjunctive, which we haven't learned yet, the imperative, which we haven't learned yet. First aorists don't get theme vowels. Pretty much everything else does. Second aorist verbs need an omicron theme vowel, just like present participles do. So here are the formulas. First aorist active participle is third stem plus new tau plus third first endings. The only difference between this and the present active participle is we're using the third stem instead of the first, and we don't have a theme vowel because this is first aorist. First aorist middle participle is third stem plus men plus second first endings. Only difference between this and the present middle passive participle is we're using the third stem instead of the first, and there's no theme vowel because this is first aorist. Now here's second aorist active participle, third stem, omicron theme vowel, new tau, and third first endings. Only difference between this and the present active participle is we're using third stem instead of first. The difference between this and the first aorist active participle is we've added in the theme vowel. That's the only difference. And that's going to be the only difference for the second aorist, that should say middle participle there. Third stem plus omicron plus men plus second first endings. Now notice, just like aorist infinitives, since aorist participles are not in the indicative mood, they don't have an augment. Augments are only used in the indicative. Now, again, you may be thinking, how do I tell the difference between these and future? There are a few future participles in the Bible, but most of them you'll be able to recognize just fine. We're not going to learn them in this class. So anything you see in this class is, if you're wondering if it's a future participle or an aorist participle, it's going to be aorist in this class. But if you see one out in the wild in the New Testament, there are a few future ones. You should be able to tell the difference though. All right, first aorist active participle. Here is blepo as a participle. You'll notice we've got the new taus going on. When we blend it into the sigmas, though, here for the feminines and then also for the dative plurals, we don't have us. We just have the sigma by itself there. So watch out for that. Now, that's not the sigma that's part of the stem. That's actually in the psi over here for blepsa. That's the stem. The sigma is what the new tau blended into. Now you'll notice, of course, the as and on, that's a little irregular up there. We're used to seeing something unusual there. The alpha is technically part of the stem still. Just watch those endings there. And we already mentioned that note. All right, here's the first aorist middle participle. And you'll notice once again, it's completely regular, nothing weird happening, follows the formula to a T, using those eta endings because the letter in front of it is not an epsilon, iota, or rho. All right, second aorist participles. Oh, this one got a little bit off kilter. Those should be scooted just a little bit to the right, but thankfully that's doing about what we would expect. This is doing the same thing that the present active participles did with the new tau becoming us there with that omicron. Then watch out, we've got own and on, so that's a little bit irregular there. The plurals are doing pretty much what we would expect them to do. And the endings here look exactly like the present active participles, nothing weird going on. Remember, the first aorist had on because that alpha was part of the stem. We have the omicron theme vowel here going on, which includes the lengthening up there in the masculine singular nominative. For the second aorist middle participle, again, everything is perfectly regular. Yay, nothing weird going on. Now, root aorist verbs. Root aorist verbs are a little unusual in the vowels at the end of the stem. So here is the masculine singular nominative, feminine singular nominative, neuter singular nominative. and then the masculine singular genitive, feminine singular genitive, and neuter singular genitive. So you get an idea. I don't have the whole list of all of these out there, but this should give you a rough idea. So the dative singular and the accusative singular would be down here, and then all the plurals over here. This is just like the top left-hand corner of our chart. You can see we've got anabas and anaban, which means down here would be anaban as well. We've got the new tau going on exactly like we would expect there. And we've got the sigma going on here. We just have an alpha up here, which is very strange. So don't worry about if it's an alpha or an eta. You don't have to be able to form these. Just note that that's what it does. It takes the alpha, and because it doesn't end with epsilon iota rho, it has to switch into an eta. So there you go. Katabino is going to do the same thing. I don't know why this one wasn't colored here in the genitive singular. I'm going to follow that exact same one because they are both formed from bino. Then for gnosko and epignosko, you'll notice the same kind of things going on here with the alpha switching into the etas. You'll notice there's nothing extra going on here. We go straight into that new. Got the new tau there. Yeah, there's no upsilon there though, which is a little weird. These other ones get an upsilon. Why is there an upsilon there? Like, no clue. It's just what happens, but there isn't in those two positions. So just watch out for that, especially with the upsilon right there. That's a little weird. But again, you don't have to be able to form these. You just have to be able to recognize them. You should be able to recognize that those are participle endings. You should be able to recognize that they're going on third stems. And so from there, it's pretty simple, really. And the purple was the root, the red was the morpheme, and the black was the ending, but you probably figured that out. All right, meanings of aorist active and middle participles. Pay very close attention to this, please. This is something that can be confusing if you're not really clued into this, but it really isn't too tricky. Okay, remember that the present participle shows action that is simultaneous to the action of the main verb. Ha apostolon me anthropos blepe autein. The man sending me is seeing her. We didn't say the man that sent me in the past is seeing her. We're saying the man who is sending me right now is seeing her right now. The time matches. Sending now, seeing now. Or if we had one with a past tense, we said, glorifying God, the apostle was praying, or the apostle was praying, glorifying God. Or if we made that into a full sentence, the apostle was praying while he was glorifying God. Both of them are in the past, but they're both happening at the same time. While eating in the house, the men were speaking, or while they were eating in the house, the men were speaking. The time was simultaneous. The while gets us that idea in English, or the nothing with it gets us that idea in English. Or actually, if we put it into a full clause stating out the were or the was or the is, then that also conveys that idea. Now, the aorist participle, here's where this is different, shows action that is previous to the action of the main verb. That means that the aorist action happens before the main action of the verb. So ha apostelas me anthropos blepe autein. The man having sent me is seeing her. That's a little awkward in English. So the man that sent me is seeing her. Sent is in the past, seeing is in the present. So the sending happened before the seeing. That's what this aorist participle is conveying. Here we have having glorified God, the apostle was praying. Was praying is already in the past, so we need to add some form of have in there, like having glorified God, or we can add the word after instead of while and say after glorifying God, the apostle was praying, or after he had glorified God, the apostle was praying. We need to convey this in some way that it's before the action in the past. Now, I'm going to pause here for a quick second and tell you technically what's going on in case the technical stuff helps you. If the technical stuff doesn't help you, then just go by feel, and that's fine. But if you'll notice, this one up here, the main verb is in the present. In English, the present progressive. And so what we do is we either have a participle that's in the perfect having sent, or we have a regular verb in a clause that's in the past, the simple past in English. Now, contrast that here. Here, the main verb is in the past progressive. So we need something that happened before the past, which means that we need the perfect. So we can do a perfect here, which is fine. Or if we're making it a full clause, after he had glorified God, we're going to use a past perfect. Now, the idea here with using a past participle, why this works with either one in English, is because not a past participle, a perfect participle. Sorry about that. Perfect participle. The idea there is perfect means completed. So completed when the past actioned, completed when the present action happened, or completed as it, or finished, done already when it, as it relates to now, the man that sent me, we can just convey that it's in the past. But if this action is already in the past, we have to go further back into the past and convey that this was already completed, which would be after he had glorified God, a past perfect. The apostle was praying. Now, again, I know that's extremely technical. The focus, though, is after you've translated this, look at it in English and say to yourself, is the action that was the participle in Greek, the Eris participle in Greek, does that happen before the main action of the verb? After glorifying God, the apostle was praying. Yep, that conveys that just fine. The apostle was praying, having glorified God. Yep, that sounds like the glorifying God happened first. Just ask yourself that question. You should end up with the right answer there if you're a native English speaker. After eating in the house, the men were speaking. After having eaten in the house, the men were speaking. After they ate in the house, the men were speaking. You can translate aorist participles as having blanked, or after blanking, or after having blanked. Any of those works fine. Or as a full clause as well, but you have to be more careful about the tense then. There are very, very, very few aorist middle participles that aren't deponent, and you can just translate them as if they were active. No for oneself necessary. They're going to be really, really rare anyway. So summary, here are our 4 formulas. Aorist participle shows action that is previous to the action of the verb. So we're going to translate that with having blanked, or after blanking, or after having blanked. And aorist middle participles can be translated as if they were active, whether they're